Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another video episode on the Forgotten Weapons Library. I'm Ian, and today the book we're looking at is Allied Rifle Contracts in America. This is a book that came out fairly recently and kind of flew under my radar for a little while, but really a neat subject and an excellent bunch of research that was done by the author, Luke Mercaldo, on the subject. One of the guns that we've looked at previously is the American-made Mosin Nagant. I think a reasonable number of people are aware that Mosin Nagants were made in the US. What may come as a surprise to a lot of people is that there were a bunch of other rifles also manufactured in the US during World War I on foreign contracts. And Mercaldo and his two co-authors go into an impressive bit of detail on some of these other guns in particular. And in fact, most of them are pictured right here on the cover. The Belgian 1889 Mausers were made for Belgium by Hopkins and Allen. The Mosin Nagants, obviously made by Remington and New England Westinghouse, and literally hundreds of subcontractors for small parts, which is an interesting detail. The Winchester Model 1895 for the Russians, the Savage Model 1899, actually made for some Canadian military units, and of course the Eddystone Pattern 1914 Enfield rifles. So let's go ahead and take a look inside here. You can see how the book's put together and what sort of information it has. All right, nice glossy cover. And rather than go through the whole book, I figured we'd take a flip through the Mosin Nagant section. That's the most common of the rifles that's discussed here. And it does a good job of illustrating the way that each section of the book is written. So, obviously, Chapter 1, the three-line rifle, the Mosin Nagant. It's made by Remington and Westinghouse. So he starts off with a discussion of some of the Russian arms history here, how going into World War I, Russia was in dire need of arms, and the commission set up by the Russians to procure small arms. Some discussion of the Mosin Nagant in general and its history. A bunch of cool pictures along the same time. Now, looking specifically at Remington, we have discussion of the Remington production facilities, the factory, the specific contracts that were issued, looking at some of the specific markings, production, changes to the deal when things started to have issues. We have specific deliveries. And we move on to Westinghouse. They had a couple different factories that were involved. Some of these were factories procured specifically to fulfill this sort of contract, and not only looking at the Mosin Nagant production, but all of the circumstances surrounding it. So when Mosin Nagants, when the contract started to come to a close, what the company looked for to keep the factories running. A.H. Fox was also involved with Westinghouse in this production. And again, we have modifications, cancellations to the contract, really in a lot more detail than you'll find anywhere else. What actually was going on, how many rifles were actually shipped and when. Discussion of subcontractors. There we go. A ton of subcontractors went into the Mosin Nagant production. And then of course there was US procurement of some of these rifles as well, and some discussion of the polar bear expedition that used them. Then also capture and use of some of these American-made Mosins by other countries like the Finns, the Chinese, Japanese. Bannerman conversions, of course. And then each chapter ends with kind of an overall concluding section like this, which I found really pretty cool. Discusses exactly how many guns were contracted, were made, were shipped, exactly for whom and when. Look at the specific markings on the different versions of the gun, including acceptance marks, proof marks, that sort of thing. Stock markings as well. Accessories are also covered, differences in cleaning rods, a couple different versions of bayonets, tools that went with the guns. So, and then of course it continues on to the Model 1895 Winchester and all the other different guns that are covered. One of the things that really struck me when I was reading this was, frankly, just how poorly most of the American companies did when they went to build foreign rifles under contract. It seems that at the time, with World War I running full blast, a lot of American companies were willing to pretty much accept any sort of contract they could get their hands on, even if they weren't really well equipped to actually produce the guns. A lot of them underbid these rifles. A lot of these companies ran into serious financial trouble as a direct result of taking on these foreign contracts. And yet, a lot of pretty interesting guns came out of it. So it's very cool to see all the research that went into here. There's a ton of detail that I certainly haven't been able to find anywhere else. The book is a little bit expensive. It's in the mid $40 range, despite being only about 200 pages. So a little more pricey than I would have expected. But again, it's the sort of information that you really can't find anywhere else. So I really think this is a particularly cool book. It's well put together, and like I said, it's got a lot of great info. So if this is the sort of thing that you find interesting like I do, then I think you'll definitely be happy with a copy, and you should head over to Amazon and pick one up. Thanks for watching, guys. Tune back into ForgottenWeapons.com for more book reviews.